Welcome everybody, Brother Dan Goodwin here, God's Final Jubilee program. And as you can see, I've got a guest with me. We are in Oklahoma City. I drove all day. My wife is in the room downstairs. We just got here. I got a guest that I want to introduce to everybody, Brother Michael Smith. And this is the first time we've met in person, right?
Yes, sir.
And he is going to be our guest at Processing News tomorrow. We're going to be working, and we're going to do some programs in the morning with him. And I have with me a DVD called The Cyrus Effect. If you can see that, I hope you can. The Cyrus Effect. This is a DVD that Brother Smith here did, at my request, I might add, because I liked it. He sent me this in a DVD, or yeah, I guess you sent me a DVD.
Yes.
I talked him into producing a bunch of these, and we're bringing him on Processing News to share this with the world. So there's some good stuff in here. Before we get to that, I got here and had a cup of coffee in my hand, came to his door, just got to the hotel, got unpacked, ran upstairs with my camera and tripod, knocked on your door and dropped my coffee all over me. Had to go back down, change my shirt and all that. And I think my pants are still wet, but oh well. Here we are, live, at least for those of you on Facebook, we're live. We're recording to YouTube, but this is important, and you're going to want to hear about this. And first of all, Brother Smith, you tell the audience who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your background.
Well, to start with, I was born and raised in Massachusetts a long time ago, and I left there in the 1960s, and I started flying. So I really come from an aeronautical background. I don't come from a theological background, even though I've been very interested in teaching and sharing prophecy for almost 43 years now. But I started flying lessons when I was 14 and had a student pilot's license at 16, a private pilot at 17, a commercial pilot at 18, and I enlisted in the Army. The game plan was I was going to enlist in the Army to be a pilot, and that actually happened. And so I went to fixed wing flight school, and I finished that in March 1971. I went to intelligence school after that and went to Vietnam. Served 2 full tours in Vietnam flying signal intelligence airplanes, as a matter of fact. So they were airplanes, not helicopters. And then right after the war had ended, I went back and I flew for 1.5 years, and I flew the Searching for Missing in Action teams into Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. So that experience was about 3.5 years. Then I came back from that and married my wonderful wife of 44 years, Tanya, and we adopted a child in Korea about 10 years later, Amy. Amy is now a professor at Southwestern Assemblies of God University in Waxahachie, Texas, and her husband Calvin is also a professor there. But I did serve also 3 years in Germany. I flew helicopters there, and 3 tours in Korea. I flew surveillance aircraft again there, and then retired in 1989 and was very fortunate to be hired by American Airlines as a pilot, and I flew the DC-9, it's referred to as the MD-80 airplane. I flew that for over 25 years, so I had about 26.5 years flying with American Airlines, large passenger jets, about 140 people that aircraft could hold, and then retired 3 years ago. So I've been involved with sharing prophecy pretty much full-time now as I can, so that's kind of where we're at.
Now prophecy has been kind of a heartbeat for you for how long?
43 years. So the Lord really called me into this ministry in September 1975.
Okay, so you've been, even though you've been a pilot and had a full-time pilot job, your heart, you had a lot of prophecy stuff you was into, and
yes.
And I could tell by watching some of your videos that you know your stuff, and
thank you.
It's pretty exciting. So, well, let's jump into it a little bit. this DVD, should I read the back, or you just want to tell a little bit about it?
No, that's pretty much it. My wife and I were very much in ministry. My last 15 years in the Army. Obviously, we're at different bases. I had my wife with me 3 years in Germany and 3 tours in Korea as well. We were very much involved with setting up Bible studies on military bases, Korea, Germany, and so forth. And also, we were deeply involved with the Sunday school in the States when I was based in the United States. So that really kind of covers it.
Okay. All right. So the DVD that you produced, it's called the Cyrus Effect. Now, I've watched it, so I understand what that means. Just in a sentence or two, what does that mean to the folks watching? What is the Cyrus Effect? What does that title mean?
Well, basically, we really wanted to do a film of history, and we wanted to show a strange and unusual parallel between King Cyrus 2,500 years ago and Donald Trump, believe it or not. And there's many, many parallels to that. But, you know, as an example, because of apostasy, Israel had gone into captivity for 70 years in Babylon, as we know. And it was in the 70th year that King Cyrus made the proclamation that the Jews could return back to Israel to not only build their wall, but also rebuild their temple that was totally demolished and destroyed back in the year 586 BC. So with Donald Trump, what's that? And by the way, it's Ezra chapter 1, verse 1 and 2, where it says it's in the first year of the proclamation of King Cyrus that he did that.
All right, so let's back up just a little to make sure they know what we're talking about. Babylon was ruled by Nebuchadnezzar, and then of course Belteshazzar, or whatever his name was, took over. And the writing on the wall, they come in through the sewers and they overtake Babylon. That was Cyrus.
That's correct.
So Cyrus becomes the world leader after the 70th year is over. Cyrus becomes the, just as it was prophesied in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. The second kingdom took over, and that was Cyrus. And Cyrus, God gets a hold of him. And he wants to be a friend to the Jews, not just the Jews. I learned this from some things you said. And some things I studied last night in Chronicles and Ezra. He was trying to free up everybody. He was an amazing guy.
He was.
He wasn't racist. He was interested in helping everybody, and he wanted everybody to be free. So, but he wanted Israel. He wanted the Jews to be free, and that's what happened. So after he comes through the sewer, and this is in the book of Daniel. The writing on the wall that everybody's familiar with, you know, thou art found wanting, and that night the kingdom was lost, and Cyrus became the world kingdom and became a friend to Israel, and made that decree that he was going to bring Israel back and put them back in their land, and of course the walls and the temple and all that. Now this leads right into Trump, though, and this is what your DVD is about. You're saying that Cyrus, the Cyrus of Daniel, the Cyrus of the book of Ezra, the Cyrus of that second world kingdom that you see in Daniel chapter 2, has some similarities to Mr. Trump, Donald Trump.
Yes.
All right, and then one of them I just alluded to, and I just learned this from your DVD. This thing about, one of the things that Donald Trump ran on was draining the swamp.
Yes.
Tell the viewers what that has to do with Cyrus. This is interesting.
Well, you know, the Bible clearly tells us that, well, number one, let me just say, just back up 1 second, and say it's in Isaiah chapter 45 that God, by the way, Isaiah says this 140 to 150 years before he was even born, and we know that for a fact.
And he's mentioned there.
And he's mentioned there.
And he's not born for another, it's 140 years before it takes place.
That's correct. So, but God had anointed Cyrus. Okay, so now what will happen is when the 70 years come up that Israel has been in captivity, the Medo-Persian Empire under King Cyrus, Cyrus will take over the city. And how he does that is he will redirect the river, the Euphrates River, which flowed under Babylon, as you know. And as a matter of fact, the gates were left open. That could be a miraculous story in itself, perhaps. But he drained the swamp. He drained
Cyrus drained the swamp.
Cyrus drained the swamp
to get the army in.
To get in. And that happens in the 70th year. So now, what does that have to do with Donald Trump? Remember, we said Cyrus is appointed by God in Isaiah chapter 45. Donald Trump is the 45th president of the United States.
So Isaiah 45 prophesies Donald Trump, Cyrus, 140 years before him.
Right. And
Donald Trump is the 45th president. That's interesting.
That's correct. Well, it really is an amazing story, but here's another parallel too with Cyrus. He is protecting, in other words, he is going to reconnect the Jews with their eternal city. And really that's what our film is about, because there's actually a number of times we're going to talk about in this film in Israel's history, including 1917, including 1948, including the 67 war, where they're reconnected back right. with the city of Jerusalem. So what does this have to do with Donald Trump and Cyrus? Well, in a nutshell, basically what happens is, just as Ezra chapter 1 verse 1 and 2 says, it's in the first year of the reign of Cyrus that he makes the proclamation. Believe it or not, it's in the first year of the reign of Donald Trump that he makes the proclamation to move the embassy right. from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, let's check the dates on this. If you go back, remember Donald Trump swears in on what day? On the 20th of January 2017. It's the same year, right? It's December 6th, 2017 that he makes the proclamation.
Yeah.
Okay, that is stunning. And not only that, you might say, well, where's the 70 years come in? Remember, Israel is created on paper on November 29th, 1947 right. with the United Nations, even though Israel will not physically pull up their flag until about 6 months later, May right. 14th, 1948. But if you look at 1947 to 2017, there's 70 years there. It's exactly 70 years that Donald Trump makes the proclamation where he reconnects the Jews with Jerusalem. Now, it's kind of important to say too that when Israel was created as a nation and when they physically pulled up their flag, they didn't own all of Israel. As right. a matter of fact, the Jewish quarter was the only place the Jews could live in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem belonged to Jordan at the time.
That's correct. The Jordanians, they controlled the Temple Mount platform, they controlled the Western Wall, they controlled the Mount of Olives, and the vast majority of the biblical areas.
Now let me stop you right there, because everybody on Facebook is asking, how can I get the DVD? The DVD is on my website. I hope. My wife's putting it on as we speak. My wife is putting this on the website. So go to godsfinaljubilee.com and I'll make sure that Brother Michael here gets paid. These DVDs are going on my website. He does not have a website. He doesn't really want to mess with that. So I've agreed to help him with these because I believe in it. And I watch this. I'm watching it the second time now. And we're going to do interviews at Prophecy News with this. So they'll be on Prophecy News as well in the near future, but they're not there yet. They're on my website. I've got a whole case of them sitting right on that chair, and you can get it. I think they're $19.95 or something like that. I don't know. Sure. By the way, there's hour and 20-something minutes.
Hour 24 minutes for the Cyrus Effect.
And then there's a second one. We're not going to talk about the second one now, but there's an interesting second video on here, 15 or 20 minutes long.
16 minutes.
Okay, I was close, 15 to 20 minutes, but it's the revival of the modern Hebrew language. It's quite interesting. And Brother Smith is sitting in Israel on what street?
On Ben Yehuda Street.
Ben Yehuda Street, who's the gentleman, the Jewish guy who brought back the Hebrew language. So, but we're not going to get into that because we don't have time. But that's a bonus that's on here. So it's like 2 hours long for the Cyrus Effect. On the website, godsfoundjubilee.com. My wife, if it's not there, it'll be there shortly. My wife is down in our room. She was putting it on right now, but I don't know if she's got it done yet. So if it's not there yet, check back in a little while. It'll be on there, and you can get them, and we'll get them right out to you. And you're gonna love this thing. By the way, I'm jealous, Brother Smith. The introduction on here is fabulous. It looks like a Hollywood production. I mean, it's just first class, beautiful, and the music is wonderful.
Thank you. And by the way, we teamed up with Curtis Green.
He's your producer guy.
He's a phenomenal producer in Arlington, Texas. And when you see the first 1 minute 15 seconds of this film, Cyrus Effect, you'll really have an appreciation for what he does.
What he did, yeah.
It's really, and we have 4K camera technology now. The last 4 or 5 films that we've done. Okay. So anyway,
right.
he's really done a
and
phenomenal job.
We're gonna come back with some more of these, because you're gonna do some more of these, and we're gonna get you back. And I think God's got a purpose in all this.
Well, I'm happy to share the story. It's important that people know this. And by the way, the film would be very interesting, even to rabbis and Jews that are not Messianic related. In other words, that don't believe in Jesus. I think they would be very receptive.
Do you have the coin?
I do have the coin.
He has a coin here. Tell him about that.
Well, this particular coin was minted in Israel. Now, you can't use it to buy things over there, but there are several religious organizations that have made a coin with Donald Trump and King Cyrus on the front and the third temple on the back.
Wow.
So just try to wrap yourself around that for a moment.
Now that's Israel that did
this. Is Israel.
Yeah.
And there's several institutions that make similar coins like this. This just happens to be the Midrash.
They like Donald Trump. They like our president over there.
In fact, they're going to build a transportation center and name it after Donald Trump in Israel.
All right.
A lot of the folks don't know that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to say too, relative, now there's a lot of, believe me, this is a very, very historic film. We wanted a historic film to cover things. There's a lot of stuff in here people have never heard before, even people that have been around a long time, even with prophecy. And I know you're really going to be blessed by the information that's in here. You can share it with your friends, your pastor, and your Jewish friends as well.
All right, now in just a second, I want you to go through some of them sevens. Do you need a piece of paper?
No, I don't.
You got it up here, a lot of it?
Well,
you may not get them all.
God's blessed me with
there's a whole list of them. I mean, you could spend 3 or 4 minutes just listing them all off.
It's really unbelielible.
We're going to have you list some of them, because that's the first thing that got my attention when I watched this. And this was months ago when you sent it to me. I remember watching the beginning, and I wanted to get my pen. I knew some of them, and I had heard some of them, but I hadn't heard them all. You had a lot of them I hadn't heard before. And in just a minute, he's going to share some of these. We're talking about the sevens, like on Inauguration Day, Trump was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. I mean, what's the chances of that? You know, right. They say in the Hebrew rabbi will tell you that there's no word for coincidence in the Hebrew Bible. They'll tell you. So there's no coincidence here. This is interesting. So it's on the website, godsfoundjubilee.com. You can go check it out there. And I'm trying to get the glare off it for you. But in Israel, I've seen pictures. They have billboards and signs with Cyrus and Trump. They believe Trump is a type of Cyrus for the reasons you give in here, because Trump is doing for them what Cyrus did for them way back in Cyrus's day.
That's correct.
In 536 or whatever the year was. Trump is bringing back, he brought the capital back to Jerusalem and the embassy and all that. And so to Israel, they look at him as the people years ago looked at Cyrus.
Yes.
So, and the DVD, we don't have time to go through it. We could spend the next hour just going through different things. You got the whole story of General Allenby in here. I just listened to that. I have that story in my books, but not as in depth as what you did on here. You brought out. Tell them about the white horse. I'm dying to tell them about the white horse story.
Well, what happened was in 1917, when the British, World War I was going on in Europe, obviously, and the British wanted a expeditionary force in the Middle East to put the Ottoman Turkish Empire at bay. And they sent a general over there. His name was Murray, and they had about 10,000 men that died, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
And then General Allenby, Edmund Allenby, had been promoted to general, and they put him in his place. And there was a battle for Beersheba, which was successful. That was things were not going well in Europe at the time, and that was really the first successful battle in Israel, Beersheba. And by the way, Brother Dan, that was on the 2nd of November, 1917. That battle was won. And that is the very same day. By the way, that's the 18th of Kislev on the Hebrew calendar. That's the very same day, the 2nd of November, in London, that the Balfour Agreement was written the same day. And then slightly later, some weeks later, the Battle for Jerusalem took place. And do we have time to kind of talk a little bit about that?
We'll do that on Prophecy News tomorrow.
But I just wanted to say, as
far
as
the whole story about General Allenby.
What happened was, when it was on the 11th of November 1917 that Allenby came to the front gate, they actually won that battle for Jerusalem without a shot even being fired. And believe me, that story is unbelievable. You're going to hear facts you've never heard before. And he rides up with his staff. He is technically on a black horse, and he gets to the gate, the Jaffa gate, and when he gets to the gate, he dismounts off his horse, and he walks with his horse through the gate, and he's in a city square, and he gives a huge speech, and we want business as usual, we've come in peace and all this. But some of his staff members asked him, why did you not ride a white horse in, and why did you dismount off your horse? And he's on record as saying he did not want a white horse for reasons we'll talk about in the film, but he dismounted off the horse because he said, and he said this to his men, the reason that I dismounted off the horse and entered the city is because only Jesus Christ has the authority to enter the city on a white horse.
Yeah, well, I love that.
That's a fact.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that part of the story.
And that was the 3rd day of Hanukkah that happened,
right.
By the way.
And and they take the city on Hanukkah or something.
They take the city on the 1st day of Hanukkah on the 9th.
Yeah, that's amazing, folks. That's just a little tidbit of what's in the DVD. So go to the website godsfoundjubilee.com, and we're gonna help folks get these and get them out for Brother Smith here. And be watching Prophecy News in the near future. We'll have some programs, half-hour programs with Prophecy News with Brother Smith and I. We'll be there in the studio tomorrow morning. That is if we can get out of bed. It's been a long day, but well, you're in Texas. You're just 3 hours from here.
Yeah, about 3.5.
I'm 12 hours from here.
Yeah,
so
long drive.
I got a whole list of questions here, and these are really for tomorrow that we're gonna discuss what's on the DVD here. Very interesting, the similarities between and why Israel is calling Donald Trump a Cyrus. And I got to be honest, Brother Smith. Last night I went and did a study on Cyrus. I had never really. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but I looked every verse in the Bible the word Cyrus was in. And the first place was 2nd Chronicles the last chapter of Chronicles. And then you turn the page and it's Ezra, and the first 2 verses of Ezra are Cyrus. And then there's some others, Isaiah 45, Isaiah 44, I believe, and some other places. But I learned something. I also did a little history study, and I learned that there's a lot of confusion, and we'll end with this, but there's some confusion about the death of Cyrus. I wanted to know how he died, because I'm thinking, if Donald Trump's a type of him, I wonder if there's something there. And you know what I found? There's a lot of confusion. There's 2 or 3 different versions, but they all have one thing in common. He died in battle. He died fighting.
Wow.
What a way to go, huh?
What a way to go.
What a way to go. Man, oh man.
And we're in battle too.
Yeah. And Donald
In more
Trump
ways
said that.
than one, right?
Donald Trump, it doesn't seem like the man sleeps. He, I mean, it's almost like he's supernatural. I know he's not. I'm not saying he is, but the man's 70-something years old. He goes night and day. He'll be tweeting at 4 o'clock in the morning. The guy, he's full of energy. He walks circles around everybody in Washington.
Yes. And
he's fearless. The greatest. The speech the State of the Union speech. I watched the whole thing on my phone, and I thought it was powerful.
It was.
I thought the man stood there with God's hand on him, said what needed to be said.
Yes.
And my goodness, Britt Hume come on right after the speech. Britt Hume, you know, whether you like him or not, Fox News. He said he's been covering State of the Unions for 43 years. He says he's never seen anything like this one.
Yeah.
The best one he said he'd ever seen.
Yes.
They're polling people on CNN and other places. They're saying 50 to 70% of people, even on the liberal news meter, said that they agreed with everything he said.
Yes.
Now, I'm telling you, the Democrats are in a corner. They're going to have to come out and do their job. So, well, listen, we're gonna shut her down here, and it's been good to have everybody. And those of you on Facebook, if you want to stay on for a couple minutes, I'm going to shut our YouTube thing off here. But those of you that are following our YouTube channel, thank you for stopping by, and share this if you want. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button down there. And this is Brother Smith, Michael Smith, and we've had a good time, Brother Smith. We'll have a good time tomorrow. And so you all be watching, and we'll see you next time.